Man, every time I think, you know what, things can't get crazier without government officials. Every time I think, you know what, maybe the government's gonna start locking in. Maybe they're gonna start doing things for the people. Maybe things are gonna be okay. More crazy stuff comes out. If you don't know what's going on right now, Kash Patel is suing or filing a lawsuit against The Atlantic for the article that they did on him, exposing him for blaming it on the alcohol. You know what I'm saying? Him having a little bit of a drinking problem. Him being the human version of BoJack Horseman in a very, very, very serious position. And there's stuff about him like having to get pried out of his office, him being drunk on the job and being sporadic and all that. Like, oh my God, it's crazy. It's crazy. But this is who our commander in chief has as the FBI director. And a lot of these people that are in these high profile jobs are not qualified. They're not, but they're only on because they're loyal to you know who. You know what I'm saying? They're loyal to DJT. You know what I'm saying? So let's get into this video. Crash out. Kash Patel issues furious threat. Video by Brian Tyler Cohen. Let's get into this because, like I said, Kash Patel filed a lawsuit against The Atlantic because he was like, oh yeah, no, they're defying my character. I'm suing them for defamation, yada yada. And the lady from The Atlantic, I'm gonna let y'all hear what she had to say.
I say that I am a very careful, very diligent, award-winning investigative reporter with a history of award-winning work across multiple organizations. You and I, in fact, have worked together previously. I stand by every word of this reporting. We have excellent attorneys, and you know, it is a surprising statement, but a very telling statement, I believe. And I would also note, we reached out for comment to the White House and to the Justice Department, neither of which disputed anything. We gave multiple opportunities.
Man, and if you don't know what that means, that was her basically saying, hey, we got the evidence. You want to fuck around, you can find out. Let's get into this video, man. Let's go.
Cal, I do want to give you an opportunity to respond directly to the allegations in the Atlantic article that your unexplained absences created a national security risk. And beyond that, can you say definitively that you have not been intoxicated or absent during your tenure as FBI director?
I can say unequivocally that I never listened to the fake news mafia. And as when they get louder, it just means I'm doing my job. This FBI director has been on the job twice as many days as every director before me. What that means.
This is basically him just, he didn't deny it. He didn't deny it. This is so crazy. Instead of saying, bro, the question she just asked, it was a yes or no, John. He turned it into the, oh yeah, I don't rock with the fake news mafia. I don't listen to the fake news mafia. I show up on the job day in, day out, bruh. It was a simple yes or no answer. But he answered our question with him saying what he just said. Him saying that was a yes. Yes, I I do be drunk on the job, allegedly.
Means is I've taken half as many days off as those before me. What that means is I've taken a third less vacation than those before me. What that means is that this FBI with this Department of Justice has dropped the murder rate 20 points. What that means is this FBI with this Department of Justice has captured 8 of the top 10 most wanted fugitives in the world, twice as many as the Biden administration did in its entire 4 years. What that means is this FBI has seized enough fentanyl off the streets to kill 178 million Americans, a 31% increase. What that means is this FBI and this DOJ has arrested 43% more spies in 14 months than the entirety of the Biden administration.
Brother, it is a simple yes or no question. Why did he? Yo, I know the woman who asked this question is just sitting there like, bro, no, it was a simple yes or no answer.
What that means is this FBI has seen a reduction in opiate overdose deaths up to 20% alone. What that means is that we have found 6,300 child victims, 6,300 families have their kids back. That is a 22% increase from the Biden administration. I'm on the job. I'm the first one in. I'm the last one out. I'm like an everyday American who loves his country, loves the sport of hockey, and champions my friends when they raise a gold medal and invite me in to celebrate. I've never been intoxicated on the job, and that is why we filed a $250 million defamation lawsuit. And
You literally, all of what you just said could have just been cut down into the 2 sentences that you just said right here. You did not have to make it a long-winded answer. But when people lie, something that I've seen is that when people lie and you try to catch them in that lie, they try to make the answer super long. You ask them a yes or no question, they make the answer super long. Instead of just straight to the point, no. Yeah, I've never been intoxicated on the job. Period.
any one of you that wants to participate, bring it on. I'll see you in court.
Now, I hope you were listening carefully because Kash Patel was asked a very specific question. Quote, can you definitively say that you have not been intoxicated or absent during your tenure as FBI director? And he responded by saying that he doesn't listen to the fake news, that he's taken fewer vacation days than his predecessors, that the murder rate is lower than it used to be, that he seized fentanyl, that they've arrested spies, all of which is a lot of words to avoid directly answering the question. Usually when the answer to a damning question is just no, you say no. Now, Kash did eventually utter the—
This is like when Lamar Odom was on drugs, and if somebody was to ask him, like, can you definitively say that you weren't on drugs while playing in the NBA? Bro was like, I put up 20 points per game. I was the first one in the gym and the last one out. But I ain't gonna lie, that statement probably wouldn't have made sense because he was playing with Kobe. But yeah, you get what I'm saying? Like, instead of answering the question, he just turns it into a long-winded answer.
Words, quote, I have never been intoxicated on the job. Now, to that point, I would present this. So the question becomes, when he's at the Olympics, chugging beers, was he, quote, on the job? The FBI director isn't exactly a 9-to-5 role. If somebody commits a terror attack at 2 a.m. on a Sunday, it doesn't matter if Kash is technically off the clock.
Yeah.
He is still the only FBI director we have. That's the nature of the position. And as far as intoxication is concerned, does that mean he drank any alcohol? Does he have to have consumed the legal limit, which is 0.08? Does any amount of alcohol suffice as intoxication? These are all questions that differ depending on whether you're looking for a legal definition or using common sense. But here's the important part. It may not even matter whether we parse these definitions or words or not, because if this lawsuit does move forward, The Atlantic would have the opportunity to take discovery to confirm the accuracy of its reporting, which would include taking sworn testimony not just of Kash Patel, but of others with knowledge of the underlying facts, including the 24 people who spoke to the outlet to form the basis of this story. In other words, by filing this lawsuit, Kash Patel is potentially opening himself up to sworn depositions, subpoenas, and compelled testimony from every single person who knows anything about his behavior. That is a significant gamble for somebody whose entire defense here seems to be that these stories are just fake news. In fact, the reporter that he's suing, Sarah Fitzpatrick, isn't backing down in the slightest. When confronted with the legal threats, she simply said, I stand by every word of this reporting. The Atlantic called the lawsuit meritless and said they'll vigorously defend it. So if Kash Patel's hope here was to just chill them into submission, it doesn't look like it's working. So again—
And I really, really hope that, if this lawsuit goes through, if the Atlantic wins, whatever it is, that Kash Patel gets fired, dude. Because how are you going to be running this serious operation while being an alcoholic? Like, that doesn't make sense. But this is another thing. A lot of people that this administration has hired to do these serious roles, they're not qualified at all. Period. And their only qualification, the only reason why Kash Patel is still here, the reason why this or that person is still here is because of their loyalty to DJT.
We can squabble over legal definitions of intoxication and what it means to be on the clock, but that all might be moot if it turns out that there are dozens of people who are capable of saying outright that he has been intoxicated by any definition of the term during his tenure as FBI director. But I want to zoom out here because the reality is that The Atlantic will likely have its day in court if the judge doesn't just throw this case out entirely, but it was what Kash Patel did after this that's especially telling. So the Atlantic article dropped Friday night. By Sunday morning, Kash Patel was on Fox News with Maria Bartiromo, not just to announce his lawsuit of $250 million, but to do something even more calculated.
Let me ask you about the mission, because every time I see President Trump, he says this repeatedly, that the election was rigged in 2020. I mean, he says it all the time. We all know that. And it's almost getting lost because he says it so much. You've been at the FBI now 14 months. Have you done anything about that? And do you have anything to tell us about that?
Absolutely, Maria. Look, I've been with the president nearly since day one on this. As I told you earlier, I was the one that led the effort with folks like Trey Gowdy, Johnny Ratcliffe, and Devin Nunes to expose the corruption that tried to thwart President Trump's first presidential election run. And we saw the FISA abuses there. And I lived through it, and the media came at me then, too. That just shows you that when you're over the target, you keep pummeling the target because the media is going to try and pummel you. We are not going to take this and have not taken this laying down. We did already indict former Director Comey, and that's going through the judicial process. But we also, at this FBI, even though we uncovered what we uncovered back in the House Intel days, I had to come in here and find rooms that they hid from the world. I had to come in here and find access on our computer systems in restricted and prohibited case files that they purposely put in places for no one to see and find. We have found all this information. We are working with our Department of Justice partners, and I am never going to let this go because they not only have personally attacked the presidency of the United States and President Trump, but they tried to thwart our elections and rig the entire system. And that is not something that is going to stop. That is not something I'm going to allow on my watch. Right. But you just have to remember.
So the election rigging thing is something that you aren't going to allow under your watch. But when the whole Epstein, thing was going on, you said you had everything under control. You said you was getting things together. And obviously you didn't have that under control. That was completely under your nose. So you're not going to let this go, but you let the Epstein stuff go. That's that. I don't know if Brian Taylor Cohen is going to mention that, but that's something that I want to mention because why are you so adamant about this, but you were less adamant about the Epstein files? Why?
They built this disease temple over 20 and 30 years. We've got all the evidence. I can announce on your show that we've got all the information we need. We're working with our prosecutors at the Department of Justice and their Attorney General Todd Blanche, and we are going to be making arrests. And it's coming, and I promise you, it's coming soon.
Now, I want you to think about that for a second, because the timing here is not subtle at all. Kash Patel is the director of the FBI. His job is in question. The Atlantic just published a story with 20-plus sources saying he's drunk, he's unreachable, he's erratic, and his response is to go on Fox News and promise mass arrests over a 6-year-old election claim that has been investigated, litigated, and rejected in court over 60 times, including at the hands of judges who Trump himself appointed. This is the most transparent effort that I've ever seen in real time to protect his own job. He's not announcing arrest because there's some real case here. He is announcing arrest because Donald Trump's #1 obsession.
He's doing it to save face. Yeah.
Is the 2020 election. And Patel is waving that obsession around like a flare gun while his career is going down in flames. In other words, when his own job is in trouble, his gut reaction is to use our democracy as a life preserver for himself.
Yeah.
After all, what's sacrificing democracy so long as Kash Patel can save his job, am I right? I asked Mark Elias about this point. Here's what he had to say.
Donald Trump cares more about election denialism than anything else. So if you're Kash Patel and you're trying to recover from, the devastating press coverage you've received, if you're Todd Blanche and you're trying to get the job that Pam Bondi lost, what you do is you feed the boss the meal he wants to eat. And it's going to be junk food, and it's not going to be good for him or anybody else. But that junk food is election denialism. It is lies. It is conspiracy theories. It is right-wing disinformation and misinformation spread about the 2016 election, the 2020 election, cockamamie theories about, deep state investigations of Donald Trump. And all of that right now is grinding away in a federal courthouse in Florida. So my reaction is, everybody who cares about democracy, you got to be paying attention in the weeks ahead, because there's the FBI director, seemingly sober, by the way, Brian. It's early in the morning.
Seemingly, like, after me reading that article, man, I don't even know if that's true, man. Some people can hide when they drunk, man. Some people can hide it, so we don't know. Kash Patel may have been schmizzed on that interview. Hey, he may have been schmizzed going up to that mic and being like, "Oh yeah, I don't listen to the fake news."
Reason why the FBI director wouldn't be sober, I'm just saying, seemed to be in his
allegedly,
right mind. Talking about presumably stuff that the FBI director is not even supposed to be talking about, which is imminent pending investigations and imminent arrests.
Right.
But everybody needs to take this seriously. So please do me a favor and do what I do, which is I subscribe to this channel, because I get a lot of my news information analysis from what Brian talks to his guests on.
Shout out, Brian.
A great series with Glenn Kirshner, who covers particularly these criminal cases. So go ahead and subscribe to that right now.
In other words, Kash Patel knows exactly what he's doing, and more importantly, who he's doing it for. And look, this is what happens when you fill one of the most powerful law enforcement positions in the world based on loyalty rather than competence. The Atlantic's reporting, sourced to more than 24 people, describes a director who was drunk.
Oh my God. More than 24 people have came out and said something about you either being drunk on the job, being erratic, being hard to get to, this, that, and the third. Oh my God. And I'm over here thinking like, yo, people, like the people in these higher positions, they don't see these articles come out and they're like, hey, maybe we should get this guy out of here. But then I'm like, bro, the only reason why some of these people are in these positions is for loyalty. It's not for competence. It's not because, oh, this person's good at this, they're good at that, they can perform in this and that way. No, it's just loyalty. It's just loyalty. Now, in friendships and relationships, yeah, that's a big thing. But we are talking about the FBI director. We need results. We need action. Fuck loyalty. We need competence. Man.
At private clubs in DC and Las Vegas, who had meetings rescheduled around hangovers,
Hold
who
on.
at private club, sourced to more than 24 people, describes a director who was drunk at private clubs in DC and Las Vegas,
Wow.
who had meetings rescheduled around hangovers, who has a security detail that
He's having meetings rescheduled around hangovers. I don't know if y'all listen to Lucky, but I think there was a bar or something that he said that went along the lines of I had to reschedule these like business meetings because I was too fried or whatever. Kash Patel is doing that. That's what Kash Patel is doing. He's doing that. But the difference between Lucky and Kash Patel is Lucky is an artist. One of the GOATs, by the way. One of the GOATs. Kash Patel is an FBI director. Oh, man.
can't wake him and potentially needed to use SWAT breach equipment, whose leadership has resulted in senior officials inside his own administration openly discussing his replacement while he's still in the job. That's not a profile of a man who is running the most important law enforcement agency in America. That is the profile of a man who got the job because the president wanted a loyalist, not a director, and whose primary skill set is not leadership, but slavish devotion to one man. So if you're wondering why it feels like so many people are incompetent in this administration, that is a feature, not a bug. Because competence was never the goal. I mean, hell, if they were actually competent, the last place they would be is in this White House.
Period.
But Trump is learning in real time that when you fill your cabinet with clowns, you shouldn't be surprised when it's run like a circus.
Damn, that was a good bar. Shout out to Brian Taylor Cohen. But also what he doesn't realize is in him putting people in these positions that are just loyal to him and aren't competent in these positions, it is not only is it going to look bad on him, obviously, but things are going to get worse for him. There are Republicans now that are like, bro, I'm not voting for this nigga in the midterms. I'm not doing this shit. I'm not voting for this motherfucker again. There's people who are MAGA who are now like, oh my God, the way this country is being run, what the hell is going on? So he has his own party turning on him, his own little collective, which is MAGA, turning on him. A lot of the world is like, yo, what the hell is going on in our government? What the hell is going on in our White House? So this is looking bad on him. And me and my mom were having a conversation a day or two ago about like when you are lazy on the job or when people just aren't competent at what they do on the job, it's a domino effect. It doesn't only affect you, it affects the people around you, it affects other outside people. I hate to say it, but if things keep going on like this, we are going to see the domino effect of that happening, if we're not already seeing it right now. So yeah, I still can't believe that our FBI allegedly is being ran by somebody who can't abstain from the liquor, who can't push back on the alcohol. You know what I'm saying? But let me know what y'all think about this in the comments. I love y'all so much. Marso Mafia, the gang, Marso Mob, the squad. And I'm gonna see you in the next video. Peace.